Mr. Happy Living here, and I'm happy to be broadcasting from WITV7 in the beautiful Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Hey friends, will you join me for just a minute and imagine how amazing you'd feel living the unique and distinct life you were put on this planet to live, doing work you love, with people you love, in places you love, and all the while creating something of real value for others. That's what I call a life of significance, and I can tell you it makes for a very happy life. And so can my friends, Marge and Kyle Bevers. They're my guest stars today, and they're here to share their unique and distinct journey to their life of significance. But before I bring them on, I'd like to share a poem that we created to thank them for being our guest stars today. Here goes. In Rockford's heart, they leave their mark, reviving history, igniting a spark. With passion and purpose, they take the lead. Marge and Kyle planting hope's seed. From grassroots efforts, their love takes flight, revitalizing buildings, making wrongs right. A city reborn through their grace, Rockford spirit in every trace. So tune in, my friends, to hear their tale, a love for Rockford that will not fail. Listen carefully, hear their story unfold. Marge and Kyle and their hearts of gold. So, Marge and Kyle, welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you. I hope we can live up to your poetry.
Yes.
So just get us started by telling us what you're doing these days to make your mark of significance on the world.
Well, I can name several things, I guess, but the first one seems relatively small, but this is a real close to the neighborhood thing. I gather inoperable vacuum cleaners from friends and neighbors and curbside. I repair them and donate them to individuals or organizations where there's a need. It recycles machines. It keeps them out of the landfills and hopefully helps others, and it makes me feel good. Another thing I do is I'm on the board of directors of a local not-for-profit museum. It's called the Laurent House. It's a Frank Lloyd Wright designed home that's here in Rockford. And the goal is twofold, I'd say. One is to bring tourism and economic value to our city. And the other thing is to educate and demonstrate what Frank Lloyd Wright thought was the proper relationship between nature and man's buildings. The third thing I do is I'm available to help my wife in all of her endeavors.
And I've been drafting him for years. First at some of my jobs at not-for-profits, and lately lots of other efforts. And one of them is my most recent effort. I've spent the last 4 months organizing and running a 5-day booth at our local county fair for one of the political parties, and Kyle helped tremendously with that. I've now moved on, and I'm working with a bunch of other women on a fundraiser for a candidate, and I'm sure there'll be many others in the future, other projects to come.
I love it. And Kyle, I didn't know about your vacuum revitalization business. How did you come up with that idea?
I don't know. I guess I've got some mechanical abilities. I guess I grew up on a farm and I learned that I can fix most anything.
Yeah.
And after having repaired a couple of vacuums for ourselves or friends, I just kind of stumbled into it. And, you know, a lot of vacuum cleaners are put curbside when somebody can't figure out what's wrong with them.
That's what we do today. Something we have a problem with something, we just throw it away and get a new one. So I love that idea. And before
Same thing with buildings.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Exactly. And I'll tell you what, I see so many empty buildings as I travel around the country. It's really mind blowing. What was I going to say? I wanted to ask you one more thing. And now I've lost my train of thought. We were into the vacuums. Anyways, well, so let's move along. Oh no, I know what it was. I want you to give our audience a picture of your home, which is in the bottom of a building downtown, but it's not like, you know, what most people might think of, just a little flat in the downtown building. Can you just kind of give us the picture of that beautiful home?
Well, again, it's a third story of an old retail commercial office building, and we totally gutted it. The building was built in 1869, and we gutted it out and rebuilt it. And we now have 2 large loft apartments on 2nd and 3rd floor. And then we've got a small studio apartment above the garage on ground floor as well. So that's how we saved this building from somebody tearing it down.
That's awesome. And how long have you lived there?
We've been here 18 years now.
Ah, very good. All right, now that my amnesia is over and I'm back on track, let's do a little mathematics so our friends all around the world can get to know you through our happy formula. It's a simple formula, but it's very, very powerful. And it goes like this: power plus purpose equals happy. So let's start with the power side. What are each of your personal practices for building up all the power you need to get things done, whether it's physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, emotionally? In other words, guys, what do you do on a regular basis to create all the power you need, take really good care of yourself and your loved ones, and still have plenty left over to be a giver to others, as you do so much of?
Well, first of all, I think like most of your listeners and viewers, we exercise regularly every day. He uses a bike and I use a gym circuit down in our basement that we bought from a gym when it went out of business. We both try to follow the doctor's orders. Sometimes we're better at that than others, but we basically do that as well. And financially, we're very fortunate to be comfortable in our retirement, and we try to always be mindful that there are some people who are not, and that's one of the things we like to work on. We both like to read. We both read magazines and newspapers. I love to read books, hold print in my hands and read it. And we do our best to try and recharge our batteries, and always reflect on how fortunate we are to be who we are and doing what we're able to do at our ages.
Yeah. How about you, Kyle?
Well, I think another thing that really helps us is keeping our thumb on the pulse of our community, as well as our state and federal governments, and what is happening around the world as well. But of course, we can act more locally. We feel like we can have more influence there. So the pulse of the community is something we really like to track.
And I've also noticed with you and experienced with you an energy, an effort, an easy energy that you put into relationship building and friendship. And how does that, juice you up?
Well, that's the epitome of community. And if we have those relationships, that provides us with the power to access the people that can help us reach our goals for our, not only personal goals, but goals for our city as well.
Yeah, very good. All right, so let's move on now and discuss. This is my favorite power generating concept. It's called a Kaizen state of mind. And it's this beautiful Japanese idea that small incremental improvements add up over time to yield great big results. And I love it because it's based on mindset, not circumstance. Kaizening life, for me, it's knowing that there's always something I can do better tomorrow than today. And it creates an optimistic, gentle, but very powerful and continuous uplifting of my life day after day after day. So Marge and Kyle, how does Kaizening your life help you increase your power to continuously become more so you can continuously give more?
Well, I guess, first of all, I got to say that I was not familiar with that term. But when I look back at some of the things I've done and the definition of it, I do think I have used that technique. I applied it on the Laurent House. Like I said, I volunteer there 2 or 3 times a week. That process has brought about the growth of the museum, our guest center and gift shop, and we now are attracting several thousand people a year to a museum that didn't exist 10 years ago. And so by those small increments, we have built a wonderful thing for our city. The vacuum cleaners, I don't know if there's any big picture thing there at all. That's just one at a time for the people that need them.
Yeah, but Kaizen, in the case of the vacuum business, it became popular in American culture, that term, when the Japanese car industry started competing with and then overrunning Detroit and the American car industry back in the 70s, 80s, I guess it was. And it was, so in engineering and in repairing things, once you've done one vacuum, you see the next one, and you've learned some things to look for.
Oh,
And every
definitely.
time you touch it and take them apart, it just you keep getting better and better at your vacuum repair diagnoses every time you see more vacuums. The doctor does the same thing. Community organizing, I'm sure, is the same way, Marge. It's like once you've learned one technique that works, you can build on it. And you learn something that doesn't work, you can, take that out of your repertoire and put it somewhere else. So you essentially
Exactly
keep
right.
getting better and better. So Marge, talk about it from your point of view. Kaizen.
Well, I think that's exactly true. Some of the techniques I used at the fair, for example, or at a lot of the special events, and I did some really strange things from air shows and car shows and the Mayor's Hunger Lunch and at the various places I worked. They still apply, and those volunteer procedures and policies and treatment of volunteers still apply, whatever you're doing, whether you're working at a fair or you're working on an event, you're working with the board of directors, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, very good. All right, let's explore purpose. That's our second element of the happy formula. And I've observed that those really great, big, major life transformations or discovery of purpose, sadly, often come from devastation. Addiction, abuse, disease, death, disaster, something awful strips a life to its core, resulting in a big and often unexpected change. However, in my book that I wrote, Turning Inspiration into Action, I share the transformational process I've used to discover purpose of my life through inspiration. So how about you guys? Was there a specific moment or event or crisis or inspiration that revealed to you the purpose you were meant to live?
I'm going to take this answer because this is one that absolutely stumped Kyle. He said, "Gee, I'm not sure I know how to identify that." But mine was very clear to me. I was in my early 30s and I woke up one night absolutely bathed in sweat. I had had a nightmare and I could not go back to sleep. And I kept reviewing that dream, which was me looking at my own tombstone, which read, "Here lies Marge, mother, wife, and could she set a 3-note trump bid," which is a reference to bridge, the card game of bridge. And I thought about that all night long and realized two of those things. The first two are very valuable and very important.
Yes.
But the third one doesn't really matter that much. It was just kind of funny. But it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do something else to serve the community. And I felt that I wasn't doing that. And that was what my nightmare shared with me. So over the next 5 years, after that sleepless night, I made a lot of changes in my life. And I have to say, I think they worked out for the best.
Well, that's awesome. What age was that?
Probably 31, 32, something like that.
And so share with our audience. A lot of people experience. Matter of fact, that's what my book is about: turning inspiration into action. A lot of people get inspired or get a message sent from wherever it came from, that message to you in that dream, and they don't take action. So talk about the days and weeks and months after that, and how you changed how you were living and how you saw your life.
Well, I think the biggest thing I did was I stepped out into the community to work on a political campaign. And that's something I've done a lot of in my lifetime. But this was really the first big one. And I got drafted into a big job. And it was so much fun. I loved working with the volunteers. And that led me to meet new people and have new experiences and think about other options for making a difference in the community. And I'm sad to say that ultimately it meant the end of the relationship that I was in. But my current one of 33, almost 33 years is very rewarding. So I think that it was the right move for me. And I've still managed to retain the title of mother and wife while adding other things.
Yeah, and you touched on something really important, because when you make big changes in your life, whether you're forced into them or whether you weren't forced into it, but you were kind of shocked into it in a way, mentally. When you do those changes, oftentimes you leave parts of your current life behind. In this case, maybe your first husband, but which is hard to do, which is why I don't think most people do it on their own. When you're forced into it and say, okay, what can I do? But so talk about that just a little bit, about the struggle of going through the change, but understanding somehow that it's what you were supposed to do?
Well, I don't really know how to explain it, except that I knew that I needed to make a change. And certainly I approached my husband at the time with what I wanted to do and the fact that I wanted to be more present in the community, go back to work instead of staying home all the time. And that didn't meet his needs. So
Yeah.
sometimes you come to the point where, you know, if you address the thing directly, I think it's better. It certainly is faster.
Yeah, that's right. Rip the Band-Aid off. And Kyle, I don't want to let you off the hook on this one, just because your wife did so great. So talk about it, and maybe yours is maybe more like mine. It wasn't devastation, but it was inspiration. And so how did you deal with different big changes in your life?
I guess I don't feel like I've been through it, the Big Bang Theory in my life, or destruction of any kind. My parents were both people who were very involved in their community. And so I grew up witnessing that, and of course, being involved alongside them from time to time. And after I got out of college and started working, it just seemed like, to me, it seemed like the natural thing to do. It was part of being an adult, was contributing to your community in some way. So I guess I'm still waiting for that destruction. It hasn't come, but I was born into this.
Let's hope it doesn't. It didn't for me either. That's why I wrote the book, actually. But it's kind of like, I think you, like me, just happily went from one thing to another thing and just said, okay, now I have this, I can accomplish that. And you just kept doing things.
Right.
And I'm sure, like me, I'm sure many of the things that you wanted to do didn't work out exactly how you wanted. And you talked to me when we were together, you talked to me about a real struggle in business, I think, right? That led to a new change. Did I remember that right?
Yeah, maybe I had it. There was a financial downturn, and my company was small enough I could see that I was not going to survive that if I didn't pour a lot of new capital in and really change the way I did business. By that time, I was at the age that I wasn't willing to put myself in that kind of debt, because I needed time to capitalize it. So I did make a change. I closed the business and went to work for somebody after having my own businesses for well, I don't know, over 20 years, I guess. Now, that was a pretty significant change, but it worked out very well.
And see, that's what I think that is a secret to avoiding the devastation of life, is paying attention to what's going on in your life and making adjustments. Because if you don't make those adjustments, then you end up, if you didn't have the foresight in that case, you would have been pushed into a situation instead of proactively making your choices.
I think that's probably correct. Although it was the initial push was a push by the economic situation, but then I did make decisions as a result of that. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Very good, Marge and Kyle. Thank you for that. Now let's take a quick commercial break so our sponsor can spread a little love with our audience. Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made for good people. That's why I love Happy Living's online e-course. It's an 8-week-long deep dive into you and the inspired life you want to live. The life you were put here on this earth to live. The one that you and only you can live. 8 weeks of lectures and ideas and topics and supporting materials and powerful self-improvement tools. All designed for you. All designed to help you create the tools and the power and the confidence you need to discover your purpose and to discover the life you were meant to live, and to feel incredibly inspired and motivated to decide you will live your life to its fullest. It's all designed to help you create the unique and distinct philosophy of you and your inspired life. Go to happyliving.com, select our e-course, and save $100 with promo code WITV7. And for every enrollment, I'll donate another $100 to WITV7. For $300 and about 30 hours, I promise you'll never, ever be the same again. And we're back, and this is the Something Significant Show, and I'm your host, Matt Gersper. And my special guest stars today are Marge and Kyle Bevers. They stay very busy in their beloved community of Rockford, Illinois, particularly in grassroots community organizing, local politics, and saving and revitalizing historical buildings like the Embassy Suites Hotel and Conference Center that was originally built more than 100 years ago by the textile industry titan, William H. Ziock. Oh, Marge and Kyle, I absolutely love the impact that you've made on downtown Rockford with the Ziock building revitalization. And I think you're going to love this article that I found called The Science Behind the Power of Giving. And it says that the act of giving itself can be a gateway for discovering your reason for being on the planet. The science tells us that giving our time and talents and treasures is a powerful pathway for discovering purpose and overcoming difficulties, and ultimately finding fulfillment and meaning in life. So I updated our formula. Power plus purpose plus giving equals really happy. So what do you think, Marge and Kyle? Has giving your time, talents, and treasures been a pathway for you to discover your purpose and for getting past difficulties that you've faced and for bringing real meaning into your life?
I think I can say yes, it certainly has. The example you cited is of the Embassy Suites and Hotel. We had a real battle with some of our community leaders and neighbors and other organizations in the community about saving this iconic building that they called an eyesore. And we couldn't disagree with that. It was an eyesore. So after 7 years working with a small grassroots group of people, we were able to stop the city from tearing that building down. We sought a contractor developer on a national basis. We scoured and came up with somebody that was willing to step in and take on the project. We now have a gorgeous 12-story Embassy Suites Hotel that otherwise would have been a patch of grass because there was no other plan other than to spend $3 million tearing it down. So
and
that was a battle.
Kyle, how long was it empty?
Oh, the building stood empty for 30 years, maybe
40
or for 30 or 30, yeah, 30 some years, I think. It was an empty, vacant building.
And what's your great big financial interest in that building?
Zero.
People ask us all the time, well, how much are you getting paid for the work you've done on this? You've spent hundreds of hours, done surveys and all kinds of things to assist. And we said, absolutely nothing. Our pay is in watching the community enjoy that building, and they are.
Unfortunately, because of our giving, we really didn't invest any money in bringing it to fruition as well. We spent a little money on printers, ink, and some paper, and a few phone calls and a couple of dinners for some developers. But it was pocket change. It was fine.
Yeah.
And so we gave in that respect and held meetings in our home, about monthly meetings for about 7 years to accomplish this.
There's several things I love about that story. First of all, is the time, 30 or 40 decades empty, and then years and years trying to get attention to actually get something done, and then years and years of getting it done. And all that while, 18 years you've been there. So that's been a part of your community for the whole time. And it started out, it must have been something that was just gnawing at you. And now it's something that you just must feel, I know you're so proud because I saw when you took me there, when I visited. And that's what this science article is talking about. It's you're giving, but you're also getting so much, in this case, not financially, but many other ways that you're feeling it. How about you,
Matt,
Marge?
Well, when people thank us for our work or they praise us or we hear something like your poem, I'm always a little awkward, a little embarrassed almost, because I know that the person who's gotten, or the people who've gotten the most out of these projects are the people working on it. It's Kyle and me or you or anybody who's doing something that they really believe in and doing it in service to others. I mean, that's what it's about.
And that's the whole gig. Science tells us that giving to others brings real meaning to our lives, which is what you just said. The joy that you feel when you're doing that fourth element of my definition of significance. Doing work that creates value for others gives you joy, and that confirms this. But there's something more to it than just the giving, Marge and Kyle. What I believe is that the real magic of life comes when you're giving from living in your purpose. So now I'd like the audience and I would like to know how it makes you feel to be happily living your life and giving to others through the work you were put on this planet to do, and people all around you have taken notice. So Kyle and Marge, please sit back, open your heart, and have a listen to what's being said about the impact your work at the Friends of Ziock has made on your community in Rockford by finding the magic of giving and living in your purpose. The president and CEO of the Rockford Area Visitors and Convention Bureau, John Gross, said, in addition to opening Rockford to new tourism markets and customers for meetings and conferences, leisure customers and corporate travelers, I believe the redevelopment of this business will signal to the community that big dreams can be realized, that change is possible, and that collaboration yields incredible returns on investment. Another said, the thing you need to know about Marge is that she is what I call a weaver extraordinaire. Her ability to connect the appropriate dots and then her knack to weave them together like a braid in a very unique trait is a very unique trait that we can all learn from. This type of braiding approach, which is made up from varying types and thicknesses of strands, keeps all the necessary connections and communications tightly woven together to achieve the vision of a project. Wow. And another said, gosh, Marge Bevers, I guess I would say she is a visionary. She can see what something can become. Others said about you both, determined, bubbly, spirited, kind, encouraging, empathetic, confident, a great sense of humor. Their advocacy successfully brought awareness and appreciation to the National Register listed Ziock building in Rockford, a former factory building between 1912 and 1950. Their efforts, which included a commission study, demonstrated the desperate need in Rockford for a hospitality development, and they compelled Gorman and Company to redevelop the former factory into the first downtown hotel in the city in 50 years. Landmark Illinois has recognized you for showing how a few strong advocates can help revitalize an aging, neglected building that was once on its most endangered historic places in Illinois' list, and how working together, a small group of determined people can accomplish great things for their community. And finally, your mayor, Tom McNamara, said, Marge is exceptional. Any project or initiative that you give her gets done and done impeccably. She ran the entire walking operation for my campaign, hundreds of volunteers. It resulted in the first time in history a candidate won every ward in every precinct. She's worked with the food bank, the hunger campaign, you name it, she's done it, and done it with excellence, grace, and grit. And he concluded, I'm a fan of Marge Bevers. So guys, how does all that love make you feel?
Oh, so glad we have so many friends and we all work together on all of these projects, because nobody can do this by themselves. It takes a group, like our Friends of Ziock, or what we call FAZ. And when we started, we had just a few people. By the end, we had over 100. We started with 3 leaders. We didn't have a formal structure. We didn't have a 501c3, but we pushed and pushed and pushed. And no matter what the negativity that came back at us from some people, we pushed on past it and just kept our shoulders to the grindstone and kept working away at what we needed to do. And now everybody's happy with Embassy Suites. It's making money and producing taxes and jobs.
And it's beautiful.
I would add that while we've gotten some recognition from leading some of these causes, the grunt work is done by many friends and family that were there for us and helping to make things go.
Yeah. Oops. That's awesome. No, you're fine.
Battery 70%. Connected to KY.
Good. You're getting a battery warning.
Can't hear.
Are you good? You hear me, Marge?
Yes,
Yes.
now we can.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So thank you for both of you sharing that. And that's what this show is all about. It's finding that magic that you're describing that I see on your face, especially Marge's face is brighter than yours, Kyle, but I know it's underneath there. It's the same. Finding that magic in each of our lives. It's available for each of us. That's what I believe. And it comes from this great big happy circle. Giving your time and talents and treasures is a powerful pathway for discovering your purpose. And when you're giving from living in your purpose, it brings a profound joy to your life and to the lives of those around you. And I talked to somebody the other day, I interviewed her, not the other day, several years ago. Acts of kindness benefit not only the giver and the receiver, but also people who see that act. So it really does create this ripple effect. And it seems that giving leads to purpose and giving from purpose leads to joy. So to capture the exponential power of our happy formula, Marge and Kyle, I've got to tweak it just a tiny bit more. See what you think about this. Power times purpose times giving equals happy to the third power. And that's really, truly, deeply happy. Does that sound about right to you?
That sounds good.
Yes.
Well
Very
said.
good. Very good. Let's wrap things up with a lightning round. I love the power of words and the capacity for great quotes to change lives. So I'm going to read a few of my favorites and then have you respond to us by saying what they mean to you. And just give us the first thing that pops into your mind because we call this a lightning round. I'll start off, Marge, you answer first, and then we'll go to Kyle and we'll switch. The first one's from Hemingway. He says, it's good to have an end to journey toward, but it's the journey that matters in the end.
I think he said it better than anybody else could. I think that's exactly right. It's the journey that you take on all of these projects that we work on, and the opportunity to meet other people who are like-minded, who are willing to put their shoulders to that same grindstone. That's really rewarding.
My comment would be that you can't foresee what the end is going to be always. Sometimes you're successful, sometimes you are not, but you have to cherish the times in the journey. And if you don't get the results you want, you have at least learned something that you can apply to the next project.
For example, one way not to fix a vacuum cleaner.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, this is from Leonardo da Vinci. I'll come to you first, Kyle. He said, while I thought I was learning how to live, I have been learning how to die.
Well, I guess everything is a progression toward that. You have to reconcile within yourself that time is going to come for everybody. Mm-hmm. Not to dwell on it, but to live your life knowing that that's going to come to an end and enjoy what you have while you're living.
Yeah, very good. Marge?
I think that's one of the things that should drive us all as we're here on the planet, to make sure that we have a meaningful existence, not just rewarding to ourselves, but having significance to others. That's what really counts.
Yeah. And football or sports, I would say leave it all on the field. Yeah. Right.
That was quoted by a politician just very recently.
Yeah. So this is a little long, so beware. It's from, I didn't realize this, pretty long. Naomi Long at Madget. And she said this, I wouldn't coax the plant if I were you. Such watchful nurturing may do it harm. Let the soil rest from so much digging and wait until it's dry before you water it. The leaf is inclined to find its own direction. Give it a chance to seek the sunlight for itself. Much growth is stunted by too careful prodding, too eager tenderness. The things we love, we have to learn to leave alone.
That makes me think about Friends of Ziock in our 7 years, with some of the really kind of nasty criticisms that came to us about being tree huggers and being totally irrational and not being sensible about our goal. We just had to keep telling people at the meetings, everybody, the leadership and most of the membership were in agreement. We have to just put our heads down and keep going because we know we've got a good idea. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we have to try rather than let the building go. And I think that's what that says to me.
I think I would react to that by saying in our work with friends and organizations and volunteers, we have found that there are some wonderful people out there that don't need direction. They can do their talent. They can use their talent and do the things you need done, as long as you describe what that is, and let them blossom.
Yeah, that's good. And just by the way, I don't think many tree huggers help revitalize 13-story skyscrapers in downtowns. Just as an observation. So this one's from Coretta Scott King, and we'll go to you first, Kyle. The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members.
Oh, absolutely. A community is not a community without the members. I mean, it takes the people, and that's what it's all about. It's not the buildings, it's not the roads, it's not the river, it's the people that create community. And so that's absolutely what defines it.
For me, that also brings back the Friends of Ziock. And after we got historic status on the building, we realized we couldn't let the city down and leave them with this awful hulk for 2 or 3 years when they were forbidden to do anything with it. We had to go look for developers. So we brought 6 of them to town. And our first meeting with the ones who eventually did the project, Gorman and Company, when they came to town, they sat with a bunch of us at lunch and said, we would never come back to Rockford. We would never come to Rockford for this project if there weren't a group like yours, a community group like yours, ready to stand ready with us, to advocate for this, to work on it, to be faithful to the end goal. And we will be faithful to what you want. And they were.
That's great. That's really great. This is from Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, the only way to convert an enemy to a friend is through love. Marge, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm thinking about some of the people in my economic development teams around the city when I was working at the airport on the foreign trade zone. And I would go to those meetings and insist on giving them an update on the Embassy Suites building. And they would roll their eyes, and they would sit back, and they would close their eyes, and they would be on their phones. And finally, they looked at us right before the building project actually began, when they could see that there was an ending to this that was going to work, and they became friends. And they all turned and supported, even the ones who had been very opposed to the project. So that's true.
That's awesome. Kyle?
I guess my response would be, first of all, you have to know your enemies, and you can't know them if you don't become close to them in some way. On the other hand, I'm not sure I can love all the people that have pushed back, but the fact that we have done some good things for the community, and the results of those things, I think, bring those people around. And we've had people push back and say, I was wrong, and then I was right, and then I was, and they come around eventually.
Well, Kyle, also, Dr. King didn't say convert all enemies.
Right.
He said an enemy.
And yeah, just a couple of them.
All right, this is from Goff. This is our show anchor, and he said, whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Marge?
Well, if anything has inspired anybody out of this show, I hope they find that same opportunity in their own communities, and they pull together a group of people who can work on the project and solve it and make the community better for it.
Yeah, I would agree that you're not going to get anything done if you don't begin. And right. Procrastinating isn't going to help at all. Doesn't mean you don't have to take some time and think through the process, what your ultimate goal is, but then get started.
Yeah, very good. All right, now, folks, it's your chance to be a giver too. If you can hear my voice and you are inspired by today's show with Marge and Kyle Bevers, please share a little love with our incredible broadcast team by giving what you can to WITV7. They're a 501c3 charity on a mission to educate, empower, and encourage. They do good works with your kindness. Marge and Kyle, I love the vision you have for what is possible from how things are today. And I admire your dedication, perseverance, and optimistic attitude that keeps you going even when the going gets tough. And I'm super happy that you've shared your kind-hearted, community-minded, make it happen spirit on our show today. Will you take a minute or two and share any parting remarks you'd like to leave with our audience?
I think I've covered most of my closing.
Yeah, I just hope that somebody will hear what we've said and what you have said and truly take it to heart and pay it forward and do something for your community. I hope we have done.
Right after the French Revolution and the American Revolution, there was a Frenchman whose name escapes me right now. He came to America and he looked around, and when he went back home to France, they asked him what was the biggest surprise about America. And he said, Americans look around their town, their state, their country, and they identify a problem. And they immediately begin trying to figure out how to solve that and gather people around to do that. I think that's a great goal.
That's a great goal. I remember talking to a European guy. It was after, sadly, after 9/11. And he said, you know what the difference is between the Americans and the Europeans? So he says, when something bad happens in America, the Americans rally behind it and say, we have to make sure that never, ever happens again. He said, in Europe, they say, that hasn't happened in a long, long time. It probably won't happen again. And that's a little similar to what you said.
Yeah.
And I'd like to finish the show. I didn't ask you about this, and you don't have to answer me if you don't want to, but I am inspired by your energy and vision and continuous work and starting vacuum repairs and all that at a very mature age. And you don't act or look your age. Would you mind sharing with the audience how old you are so they feel inspired that it's never too late?
That's right.
Would you mind sharing?
80 in another month. I'm 79.
And I am 75 years old. I'm not as old as our building, but I'm older than most of the vacuum cleaners.
That's awesome. And you guys are just fantastic. So thank you for this show.
Thank you, Matt. Wow.
And I also want to thank WITV7 for hosting and promoting our show so we can keep interviewing inspiring guest stars like Marge and Kyle and reaching folks just like you, ready to create your own extraordinary lives. And most especially, thank you, viewers and listeners. You'll find links to social media and all things Marge and Kyle Bevers. Find them, friend them. And if you're ever near Rockford, Illinois, stop by the beautiful Embassy Suites Hotel and enjoy the food, drink, and fantastic views from the rooftop bar and lounge. You'll find it all in the show notes. From me to you, dear friends, I love you and I want you to be really, truly, deeply happy too. So go to happyliving.com right now and download our free mini but mighty ebook called Making Your Mark of Significance. And once you read the book, and it really only takes about 30 minutes or so, then give some thought about what we can do together, you and me, to improve the happy of your world, one person at a time. Till next time, I'm Matt Gersper. You are awesome, and this is the Something Significant Show.